everyone, welcome back to another informative video from the world of English exams.com, a website on which you can find all the necessary resources and materials that you would require for your English language exam preparations, be it the CELPIP or the IELTS or GRE or TOEFL, OET, whatever it is. So if you want the materials, so there is the wonderful website which is www.worldofenglishexams.com, and also don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, and do share it with all your friends because sharing is caring, isn't it? So in this video we are going to understand what's the basic difference between the IELTS test and the CELPIP test. So today I am going to highlight what are the major differences and similarities between both of these tests. Often the test takers are confused as to which test they must appear to and what's the difference between the various formats of the test. So this video is going to cover all the related aspects to both of these examinations. So without further delay, let's check out what the differences are. Yes, we will begin by understanding what is the meaning of IELTS and what is the meaning of the CELPIP. The IELTS, or the International English Language Testing System, is a test that measures the proficiency in the English language of the people who want to either study abroad or work in a foreign location. On the other hand, the CELPIP is the Canadian English Language Proficiency Index Program, and it is a general English language proficiency test aimed at people who wish to immigrate to Canada, particularly to Canada. So that is the reason it is named as the Canadian English Language Proficiency Index Program. So did you understand what's the basic difference? Here the IELTS is an international exam, whereas CELPIP is mostly confined to Canada. That's one difference. Now let's dig into this concept further. The IELTS is accepted by over 10,000 organizations around the globe, which include schools, universities, employers, maybe immigration authorities and other professional bodies. So as you can see, the range of acceptance is wider for IELTS. CELPIP, on the other hand, is accepted by the IRCC and ICCRC. Oh, what are these? So let's understand about them in a moment. When we proceed, I'll let you know more about what organizations accept the CELPIP. And the CELPIP test is accepted for two reasons. The first one, as you can see, is for permanent residents. That means if you wish to become a permanent resident of Canada, then you need to give the CELPIP. Of course, the IELTS general also can be given for this purpose. And the second reason for taking CELPIP is to obtain a citizenship in Canada. So that's the basic difference between IELTS and CELPIP. Now let's talk about the next point. Yes, now talking about the format of the tests. So first we'll concentrate on the left side, then we'll come to the right side. That is, first we'll talk about the IELTS test and then I'll talk about the format of the CELPIP test. Okay. Now the first one is the IELTS. It is offered in two basic types. The first one is known as the IELTS academic version. So this is for people, especially for students who are applying for maybe a higher education, a master's degree or a graduate degree in a foreign country. Of course, it might not be Canada, it may be other countries as well, which we'll look at in a moment. Okay, and IELTS academic is also for professional registration, such as maybe for doctors, for engineers and so on. Okay, so this is the IELTS academic. Let's hold on here for a moment and then we'll focus again on CELPIP in a moment. But before that, look at the second point. The second version of the IELTS test, that is the IELTS General Training Test or the GT test. This is for secondary education, for working, especially for migration. So if you are aiming at migrating to Canada, to Australia, the US and the UK, then you have a chance to get through the immigration process by attempting the IELTS test. So on the other hand, now let's talk about the right side. There are two versions of the CELPIP test. But unlike the IELTS academic and IELTS general, for CELPIP there is no academic test. Okay, so there are two tests. The first one is known as the CELPIP general test. I repeat, the first version is known as the CELPIP general test, that is for obtaining a permanent residence in Canada. And here we do not have any specification, and all the modules, all the 4 modules are covered. Okay, what are those 4 modules? I am going to talk about it in a moment. Now let's see what's the second version of the CELPIP test on the right side of the screen. The CELPIP general LS test. Have you understood the difference, guys? Let's just go back. Okay, so what's the first version? The CELPIP general test, whereas the second one is a more specialized version, which is known as the CELPIP general LS test. Here the focus is basically on 2 modules only, that is the listening and the speaking test. So here the test taker need not attempt the writing and the reading sections. And this CELPIP general LS test is for Canadian citizenship. And when we were discussing about the organizations that accept the IELTS, let me just go back to that slide. Yes, so we were wondering what are these IRCC and ICCRC, and I promised you that I will be talking about them in a moment. And let's come back to this slide. Yes, so the CELPIP is accepted by 3 organizations basically. The first one is known as IRCC, or the Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. That is the full form of IRCC. The next organization that accepts the CELPIP is the Real Estate Council of British Columbia. I repeat, the Real Estate Council of British Columbia, which is also known as RECBC. For your information, British Columbia is one of the provinces in Canada. Okay, so the Real Estate Council of that province, called British Columbia, takes into account the CELPIP test as a proof of English proficiency. Then the next organization that accepts the CELPIP is the Immigration Consultants of Canada Regulatory Council. So the Council of Consultants who look after immigration accept the CELPIP, and that's known as the ICCRC. So now have you got an understanding of who accepts what? Wonderful. Now let's get further. Now here on the left side you can see that both the academic and general training tests of the IELTS would assess the candidate's English proficiency in 4 modules. The first one is reading, second is writing, third is listening, and the final one is speaking. So this is something similar to the IELTS general test. So the general version of the CELPIP also accepts the reading, writing, listening and the speaking skills. So it assesses all the 4 skills just like the IELTS. However, the CELPIP general LS test, as I was mentioning earlier also, it only assesses the listening and speaking proficiency and not the writing and reading proficiency. So that's the basic difference between IELTS and the CELPIP. Next, talking about the way in which one can attempt the exam. So the IELTS can be taken on a pen or paper or a computer. So that is the recent addition, the IELTS CBT, computer based test or computer delivered test, is a recent addition by the IDP. So IELTS is basically of 2 types, okay, pen and paper based or computer based. So the candidate or the test taker has an option to choose either the pen and paper based exam or the computer delivered IELTS. Okay, so now you might be wondering, what's the difference between pen and paper and computerized? Yes, so if you are with me in the same video, I am going to talk about that difference also within a moment. Okay, now let's start. What is the CELPIP? Okay, the CELPIP is a completely computer based examination. What is the meaning of completely computer based? There is no human activity that is involved. So all the 4 modules are controlled and must be taken on a computer. So for this reason, a computer, a microphone and a headset are used to listen and answer to the question. So all the instructions will be given on the screen and the test taker needs to attempt a fully computer based test. Now, as we were talking about, what's the basic difference between paper based IELTS and computer delivered IELTS? So the paper based IELTS is a traditional, it's a conventional form of the IELTS exam wherein a test taker answers all the questions using a pen and a paper, or maybe a pencil and a paper. So here designated answer sheets will be given for the listening, reading and writing. Whereas for speaking, especially during one of the sections called part 2 or a cue card section or an individual long turn, the candidate will be given a rough paper and a pencil to jot down some notes if they wish to. Okay, so that's the basic idea behind the paper based IELTS, and the candidate needs to take the exam at a specified examination center. Then the computer delivered IELTS is also conducted at a center. However, there is no necessity to use a pencil or a paper throughout. As the name suggests, it's a computer delivered test. It's a based on computer. That means the test taker must answer the questions using a computer for the reading, writing and listening. However, speaking test is face to face. I want to stress on this point, guys. There is no difference in the speaking test. So many people have this misconception that if it's a computer based IELTS, then the speaking also would be conducted on a computer. But no, the IELTS speaking test is the same regardless of whether it is paper based or computer delivered. Okay, so now let's proceed on to understanding the other factors. Yes, so here the speaking test is carried out face to face with a trained, very well trained IELTS examiner, and also there will be some time to check the answers in between the sections and some time to read the questions or maybe understand the questions. You may ask the examiner for once or twice if you are unfamiliar with the question or maybe you're unclear with what the question is. Okay, so but that option is not there in the CELPIP test because it is electronically monitored. Okay, the speaking test is on a computer and it's not a face-to-face interview. Okay, unlike the IELTS, and there is no time to check the answers. However, even in the CELPIP speaking test, there is adequate time for preparation. So they will be giving a task which will be shown on the computer screen, and the test takers have a chance to make some notes or maybe prepare in their mind as to what their response would be. So that preparation time is there. However, there is no checking time in the CELPIP because all the sections on the speaking are well programmed, and after the specified time, the sections keep changing one after the other. Okay, so now this covers the basic similarities and a few differences between the CELPIP and the IELTS test, and also we have spoken about the various formats and ways in which the exam can be answered. Now let's understand some of the positives and negatives of IELTS and CELPIP. So talking about the advantages or the pros of the CELPIP and IELTS. Firstly, the IELTS is a test that assesses the English language proficiency in all the 4 modules. So if at all you want to get a wholesome understanding of the language and to check your levels of proficiency, then the IELTS is the best exam. However, even the CELPIP also is no different from the IELTS in this in this particular factor. However, you need to make sure that in order for you to assess all the 4 modules and to check where you are standing, you need to go for the CELPIP general test. You're not supposed to be going for the LS test because you'll only be assessed in listening and speaking and not in writing and reading if you attempt that. So that is one advantage. The candidate can obtain a very good level of understanding about himself or herself regarding their English proficiency. The next one, of course, as I was talking about, both the tests are equally valid. However, the validity and the applicability acceptance is more for the IELTS test, because IELTS on the left side you can see that it is required. It is a mandate, guys, if you want to study or maybe for immigration purposes in various countries like Australia, the US, the UK, New Zealand, Canada, etc. Whereas as I was talking about CELPIP, it is mostly confined to Canada. It is accepted for permanent residency and for citizenship in Canada only. So its target area is Canada specifically. That's what I want to tell. Next one, how is the test assessed? So there must be some way to assess your proficiency, right? So the IELTS, as you can see on the left hand side, it uses a 9-band scoring system to evaluate the English proficiency, wherein 9 indicates that a particular test taker is an expert user and he or she is well proficient and he or she is well aware of the language and they can speak, they can write, they can listen and read effortlessly. So that's what is a 9. And of course it starts from 0, which indicates that the candidate did not attempt the test. And especially for IELTS writing module, guys, if the essays or your report writing or letter writing is a memorized one, if they identify that it's a memorized one, then also you will be awarded the 0 band. So that is one care that you need to have in your mind. Then talking about the CELPIP assessment, the CELPIP test scores are calibrated against what is known as the Canadian language benchmark. So, and this measures levels from 0 to 12. It is not from 0 to 9 like in the IELTS, but it is level from 0 to 12. And here you can see two terms, right? N, A and M. So, M indicates it's a minimal score and NA is it's not applicable. That means the candidate maybe did not write the test or something like that. So it is calibrated from a score from a band range of 0 to 12 and M is minimal, whereas 12 indicates that it is the advanced level, the highest level, just like the 9 band on the IELTS test. So we calculate the scores as CLB 0 to CLB 12. Next, talking about the accents on the test. So the IELTS, it recognizes both the British and American English for spellings. So some of the spellings may be different, such as COLOUR and COLOR. Both the spellings are accepted on the IELTS test. And also it uses a variety, a mix of accents from native speakers throughout the world. Okay, so you can get a chance to listen to various accents on the IELTS test. Then what about the CELPIP? The CELPIP uses Canadian English and of course it accepts both the American and British English for its components. So whether you are writing the spelling as per the American accent or in the British accent, then there is no basic difference. So both are accepted. So these are the advantages of IELTS and CELPIP. Now let's also look at some of the downsides. Yes, talking about the cons, that is the drawbacks, the disadvantages. The first one, that the negative of the IELTS exam is that there is no spell check option and word counter. Yes, because it's a pen and paper based exam, there is no option to check your spellings other than, of course, you have to do it manually and you have to count the number of words, because you will be penalized if the essay or your task 1 is under length. So the length of task 1 will be 150 words, whereas for task 2 it is 250 words. So you need to maintain a minimum word count, and for that there is no automation since it is on a pen and paper. Yeah, so that's one disadvantage. However, for the computer delivered IELTS, you do have a spell check option. And for CELPIP, yes, a spell check and word counter are there. However, the downside is that you need to be very fast in your typing. Typing is what makes or breaks your score, I must say, on the CELPIP. Okay, next. Here for the IELTS test, there is no automatic option for the speaking. Whether it is computer delivered or whether you are attempting a paper based IELTS exam, the speaking must be carried out face to face with the examiner. So if you're not comfortable with that, you soon must be. You need to acclimatize yourself to practicing how to speak in front of an examiner. Whereas for the CELPIP, there is an advantage because it is computer delivered. However, the system of analyzing and giving your speaking scores is much better in my opinion if you go for the IELTS test, because see, when you're talking to a real person, then you can ask for a pause, or maybe you can study their expressions and you can get to know about your performance while talking to a real person. However, if you're not comfortable with that, then CELPIP can be taken, and because all the sections are on a system. So I hope that I have provided a detailed overview about what the test is and how they are conducted. So if you like this video and if you want to have more videos, more informative videos like this, don't forget to leave a comment on our website and on our YouTube channel worldofenglishexams.com. Don't forget to like this video and stay tuned to our channel for the latest updates on the test, and I will be providing you many more informative videos in the future as well. So do check them out and ring the bell icon if you want to receive all the updates immediately as and when we post a new video. So till I see you the next time, happy preparation guys, and check out our latest videos on our channel. Bye.